you ready to go? I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item, we're going to do a couple of changes in the agenda tonight. On the agenda, we're going to be removing where it says on the public hearing part, a Mr. Dugan's 15 minutes presentation. We are removing that. And we are going to be adding something under the administration report. Commissioner McDowell is going to talk about the process regarding hiring a city administrator. So those are the two changes to the agenda. At this point, we're going to move into our commission reports. Commissioner Moore.
Okay. I just ran over from my very first Mason Transit Board meeting, which was very busy, very informative. I enjoyed it very much. Lots of things that coincide with what we're doing here at the city. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with Tom Davis and Tammy Newton to discuss Homes First and a program they're going to be doing later this week. I have a briefing on Wednesday. And tomorrow evening from 5:30 to 7:30, I will be attending a Homes First meeting. It is it's a program to help support Mason County veterans in a housing program for them. It's a really valuable program that we're excited about beginning here in Mason County to help our homeless vets, and then ultimately it will move into more of our general population. So I have some information if anyone's interested in that. On Thursday, I have a Downtown Visioning Advisory Committee. I also have a meeting with a community member regarding some ideas he has for economic development. On Friday, I have a meeting with John Bollender of Mason Conservation District to discuss helping us out with street trees and what we're going to do as far as getting a plan and getting some methods and getting the proper variety of trees, replacing the ones that have been cut down and the ones that we will just want in place in the future. And that is my week.
Very good. Commissioner McDowell.
Well, I have a real quiet week this week. I do have my briefing on Thursday morning, and that's all for this week.
All right. And on Wednesday, tomorrow, I will be attending a criminal justice board meeting. I'm on that board. Later, I will have a staff briefing on Thursday. And that completes our commission weekly reports. We do have a couple of opportunities for the public comment, and tonight what we're going to do is we have the first one now. If someone would like to speak, now is an opportunity. But if you want to speak at the last one, which is very much towards the end of the meeting, you have to be signed in before we start that, because we kind of have the thing where we have a lot of people kind of rushing up at the end of the meeting. So if you want to speak at all tonight, now or between now and the last time that we are going to have the public comment period, sign in, because at that point then we're not going to keep having people rush up and sign in. So at this point, what I would like to do is, somebody want to speak now?
Mr. Tom Davis would like to speak now.
Okay, come forward, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Good evening. Tom Davis, 170 West Bushy Road. There's a couple of things I'd like to talk about, but primarily, right at the moment, I'd like to talk about what happened at Graduation Matters, and I think it's worthy of being said. I was inspired, as most people were, at the ceremony and the kickoff, but what I thought was lacking in the Graduation Matters program was everyone talked about how much more money you could make if you were a high school graduate. And that was the theme from top to bottom. And certainly that is a pragmatic approach and a very good reason to get a high school education and further your education after that. But I think you might miss the point. and the larger point. The larger point is, your life is about money. Money is not all there is to life. And it's worth saying that what happens when you have an education, a formal education, and you expand upon that education, you see life in a wider scope. You see more than you would see if you just had a limited point of view. And I think that's primarily some of our problems here. What we do is we don't expand our scope of living, of life. We don't weigh the issues objectively. We have a knee-jerk reaction to a lot of things that happen here, and we carry that knee-jerk reaction into the public life sometimes, and we carry it into our social life, and we carry it into our spiritual life. And you need to stop once in a while and step back from yourself, and you need to be able to think critically. And you cannot think critically unless you know there's an ability within yourself to do so. When you do that, life becomes clearer, it becomes richer. You look to the future rather than looking to the past. You don't do the same things your father did just because your father did them. The point is that if you have an education, the real value of that education and the time and the effort and the money spent on the education is to increase the quality of your life and the lives around you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak at this time? At this time, did you sign in?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, very good. What was your name for the record? Could you state
My
that?
name is Bob Stone. I live at 2917 East Brockdale Road.
Okay.
For over 30 years, I have worked with the finest youth over our high school and my church. I'm here today for them and the future of our youth. I am against any more marijuana growing in my state, county, and city. For whatever, when our values go up for the mighty dollars, and they don't care about the consequences. They want the dollars. Following the air is just one small thing. How about destroying our youth and thinking marijuana is okay? It saddens me to think our leaders and other adults do not care about Shelton's future and want to poison our health and minds. Gone's Christmas Town, and now we can be Pot City because the city wants money. Don't turn on our youth, our future. Really consider the consequences of your decision. I had the privilege of hearing the superintendent of public schools today talk about that graduation matters. And it's more important for them to be able to have a good mind and a mind not be muddled and fouled up with marijuana in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Did you want to speak under the general public comment? Because our public testimony for the public hearing will be called on later.
For this issue?
I'm just asking for general public comment for right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the marijuana issue.
Yes.
Let's speak, yeah, pardon me, this is the best time to speak about other things.
Other
The
things.
marijuana issue, we're going to have public comment and testimony at that time under that,
So Lisa would like to speak under the public comment.
okay?
Yes, I was wondering, because I read an article in the Kids That
Go ahead and
Fun-
state your name for the record,
Sorry.
please, Lisa.
Lisa Renfro. There was an article in the Bremerton Sun regarding the need for housing and demand, and it had all the counties in there, but Mason County wasn't in there. And I know we're not like a big city that it took 10 years for them to make this big 250 apartment complex over by the ferry. And I don't know how much they charge per month and how affordable that is for our 250 homeless people if they have vouchers for VH vouchers for that unit over there in Bremerton that just opened up. That's available now. But I was thinking it would take us 10 years to have a development to to be able to do something like that. So instead, I was reading an ordinance regarding duplexes, and it was saying something to the regard that you can only have 2 on a city block. And is that on one side or both sides? So if we change our ordinance to say that, you know, we could have more than 1 duplex, we can house more people maybe.
Thank you. All right, anyone else on general public comment?
No, the other folks that signed up for the comment want to speak under the second
Okay.
public comment
Okay,
section.
very, very good. All right, what we're going to do at this time is going to recess out of our regular meeting, and we are going to open up a public hearing regarding the marijuana regulations ordinance number 1882-0116. I'm going to turn this over to staff at this time, and turn this over to Mr. Steve Goins at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This is a public hearing to consider some code changes that would affect recreational and production and distribution of marijuana facilities in town. I did brief on this a couple times now, but sort of in a summary, the legislature passed a number of changes to the requirements for how marijuana is regulated. Those changes included giving cities the ability to consider changing buffers for certain types of uses between recreational retailers or distribution facilities. It included provisions that over time would share revenues with jurisdictions, particularly jurisdictions that did not prohibit these kind of uses. And we began to think about how to present that and how to consider that. So we had a discussion, and staff has came back with what we believe was the direction we were given at that time. The staff report sort of describes how the draft ordinance you have in the packet addresses those items. In the meantime, we've received a number of calls, inquiries, and information. I have a couple of handouts that I'd like to pass out to you to take a minute to do that. The first item I handed out is this letter that's dated December 29th. This is from, I'm going to probably get this name wrong, Laura and Robert Rogers, describing their concerns about changing the buffers and allowing facilities in the vicinity of the main complex area. The back side of it has a diagram that shows some various facilities around that, mainly the central building in the Ranger complex, including the preschool daycare, which currently prohibits this type of use in that area. The second handout is a informational PowerPoint presentation that was prepared by Black Knight Biotech. They describe in part their approach for utilizing sustainable practices, addressing security issues on the facilities, the economic impact of this to communities, tax benefits, and how they would envision changing the building and the resurrecting use within that building. There's some photographs there that have some enhancements that will show before and after kind of illustrations. Specifically, the draft ordinance addressed one of the provisions that was included in the state's update. As we discussed last time, the cannabis collective gardens are being sunset. They're being replaced basically with cooperatives. And the state is requiring cooperative to have certain licensing requirements. We currently have a prohibition on the collective gardens. The proposed ordinance would extend the prohibition on these cooperatives and sunsets the ability to have a collective garden, which as of July won't be able to be licensed anyway. The regulations also address the concerns that were raised about private facilities and having someone growing pot plants in their house, which is where this is moving toward in certain provisions in the changes in the state's regulations. Having the ability to enforce when those become a problem. And we tried to describe some of the ways that could be done. If for instance, your plants are visible, or if there are leaf odors that are affecting your neighbors, then we would have the ability to enforce regulations that don't allow that and would have some teeth, if you will, to prohibit that kind of activity in the neighborhood. The third one is sort of the centerpiece of this, and that's the reduction of the buffers. As we described last time, and as this map that's pretty small scale, hard to see, illustrates, the current buffers are 1,000 feet from a number of different types of land uses, including daycare facilities and parks. Those buffers pretty much preclude a lot of land in Shelton from the production and distribution types of operations, except for on the waterfront where the mill sites. The proposed change reduces the buffers for daycare facilities and other types of facilities to 500 feet. And the map that's behind this sort of illustrates what that change is. These daycares are marked in the orange symbols. And this one in particular is, with the buffer reduced, you can see here, this blue line now is not including this property here, which is part of the Rainier complex of buildings. To show you the zoning on that. This yellow area is essentially that parcel where that building is located. Noting that it's adjacent to the mill site in terms of the land use designations there. Other than the city's industrial or satellite waste plant up there by the airport, there are no other industrial zone lands in Shelton. It's a pretty substantial area, but it's the only area that's only industrial.
And how many feet is that then? Now it's from 1,000, but this daycare is like 500 feet, is that?
That map reduces that buffer to 500 feet. The provisions that we drafted up also address some concerns about odors. We talked about the potential of odors being emitted out of buildings. There's been a lot of concern and questions about what's going on at the port, particularly depending on which way the wind's blowing and where you are. There seems to be a lot of sensitivity to the smell these buildings are emitting. Those buildings, I checked with the port's executive director. Currently, none of them operate with a closed system. They're all just ventilating out. Our proposal would require that all of these types of operations have a closed system that would try to capture those odors. And there's a lot of information that I think is available that describes how that's done, including the Black Diamond Biotech information I provided you. They describe the carbon and ozone filtering systems that minimize that impact for the neighbors. Last thing is the ability to utilize this property requires a modification to our zoning code. Currently, these uses are allowed in industrial zones. However, the main complex building there is a commercial industrial zone. What we proposed is that a producer, processor could be allowed to get a permit through the state when these commercial industrial zones are adjacent to industrial land. And we thought about how to best word that, how best to approach that. It seemed like that from the perspective of land use and what's going on in that particular area, that area just feels very industrial. In fact, it's been zoned industrial in times past. Having that link to the industrial nature of the waterfront and the mill site made a lot of sense in terms of the land use. So we felt comfortable with that kind of language in terms of that's something that I think is defensible and supportable. We made a recommendation to hold a public hearing, and what goes on beyond that is I think we'll have to have a conversation about that. One of the concerns we've had about this process from the beginning was how long it can take to get land use regulations through the state process. We are required to have a 60-day review. We've requested from the state to have an expedited review of this particular ordinance. We have to wait to find out their answer. I don't know if they're going to grant that or not. If they were to grant it, they would complete their review as early as January 28th. But at this time, I don't know if that's going to occur. If that was the case and you were inclined to want to move this forward, you would have the ability to do that after that time. If we aren't granted that opportunity to get an expedited review, we're going to have to wait out the 60 days, which is typical for these kind of land use processes. I think that concludes my report, unless you have any other questions.
So for the public, exactly, why don't you explain a little bit about what you're proposing to do tonight? Because what we make a decision tonight isn't the final vote.
The main purpose of this meeting was to allow the public to take comment on this proposal, for the commission to hear those comments and consider those. You have an array of options before you in terms of what to do with that. We can take this back and make modifications. We can ask for further studies or analysis if there's some questions that are giving a lot of concern. We can have answers to those. So the objective tonight isn't necessarily to make a decision, but to have a public hearing so that you're better informed moving forward.
Right, and usually we allow the public to speak at this time because we want to hear from the public. So I think at this point, what we'd like to do is take any public testimony concerning this issue now, and do we need to sign in a separate sheet?
We do have a sign-in, and the first person we would like to call up is Pat Weston.
Hi, I'm Pat Weston, and I have lived in Shelton for 25 years. My cousin was a school teacher here until she retired, so we have roots here. I was very upset when I saw that this was a potential to be brought into our community. I wanted to look you in the eye and say to you, this is going to affect your family. This is going to affect your children and your grandchildren and their friends. Who's going to work at this place? Is this what we want in our community? And I just needed to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
The next person on the list is Laura Lynn Rogers.
First, I want to thank you for considering our written testimony that we've already sent in. I'd like to share that publicly. My name is Laura Lynn Rogers, and I live at 229 Wyandotte in Shelton, and I've resided at that residence for over 25 years. And I'd like to express my opposition to any relaxation of current regulations covering the location of marijuana operations in Shelton. Initiative 502 was passed in 2012. Restrictions on locating operations were specifically addressed in the initiative as well as mentioned in the voter's guide. Those regulations included limiting the vicinity of growing, processing, and selling within 1,000 feet of schools, parks, daycares, and similar locations. Based on problems already occurring within our county as well as similar issues in Colorado, I believe it's not in the best interest of the residents of Shelton to modify the limitations on marijuana location. I've already submitted the letter, map, and wind data to you, which specifically opposes any change which might impact parcels in the vicinity of Bordeaux School, Mount Olive Lutheran Daycare Preschool, Neelan Park. And I hope you'll consider this information as well as increasing information from Colorado about the issues of odor from marijuana operations. I'd also like to encourage you to pass an ordinance that will require any grow operations in the city limits to have closed growing environment, which was addressed here, but with strong penalties or shutdown if any odors escape. And again, I thank you for your time and considering our opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next person is Lewis. And Lewis, if you could state your last name, I'm not sure that I could get it right.
Good evening, Mayor and other commissioners. My name is Louis Gaffoni, Post Office Box 517, Shelton. I, like the people before me, are against shrinking the buffer zones. The state legislature has given you a guideline to go by, not saying you have to do it. It's a guideline of 1,000 feet. You could shrink it, as Mr. Goins has said. That is your prerogative. I want to draw your attention to an article that Mr. Gordon Weeks wrote quite nicely in the Shelton Journal. On the front page, it's titled, "Could Smell Derail Pot Business?" Those are his words, not mine. I agree with him, but they're his words. On page 22 of the same issue, he went up, which I think was a great thing. He talked to Port of Shelton Executive John Dobson. Are there any smells? Mr. Dobson said, well, it was a skunky smell coming from the grower up there. But Mr. Dobson told Mr. Weeks, we're used to it. Take it for what it's worth. The grower who is up in the Port of Shelton said they have installed a charcoal filter so the air goes through it, but according to Mr. Dobson, it's still the same smell. And in the same article, Mr. Dobson went on to say, when there's a cloud inversion, it causes his words, skunky smell, to spread out throughout the area. Sometimes in the summertime, my wife and I are shopping on Railroad Avenue. And I imagine some people in here have smelled the odor coming from Simpson Lumber. It's a pungent smell, and it discourages us from doing too much shopping. We just want to get out of the area and go home. If the marijuana grower who has shown interest in the Rainier buildings says that they will take care of the problem, well, judging by what the gentleman up in Port of Shelton, he hasn't cured the problem. My concern is if you let this go forward, that let's say someone up on Highway 3 towards Red Apple.
Yep, kind of finish up.
Okay, my concern is if someone wants to sell the house and they're on Highway 3 going up towards where Red Apple used to be, and that smell is carrying up there, who in their right mind would want to buy the house?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob Stone, we heard your comments earlier, and we will make sure that becomes part of the testimony under the public hearing. Marilyn Vogler.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. I want to speak in favor of your approval of this. As Mr. Stone said, Shelton does need money. The people who have proposed this plant have said they'll be using state-of-the-art technology to control the smell. They've told us it will bring a number of jobs to the area. These plants can be well operated by good neighbors. This is a family operation. We met husband, wife, and 2 grown sons the last time we were briefed on this. The Commission has talked at length about the need for economic development. Any economic development brings change. It has downsides and it has advantages, and it's your task to weigh these. We've been promised the odor would be controlled. Marijuana is a legal drug at this point. All 4 of Shelton's voter precincts approved this. It didn't squeak by in any of them. It was approved in Shelton, I-502, by 54%. People in Shelton in general do not oppose marijuana. They support its legalization. Please hear those people when you make this decision. We've also heard that Simpson has an odor: economic development, jobs, impact. This project will fill vacant buildings. It will cost the city nothing. It's not costing the city $4 million to extend the water project for Shelton Hills' eventual development. It's not threatening us with the federal government in the form of EPA to look for grants to identify brownfields, which is a first step in economic development. I urge you to allow this through the buffer change, through the zoning changes. The planning department has gone to great length to write an ordinance that will protect the city and allow this development to occur, and we do desperately need the dollars that economic development brings. Thank you.
Andrew Lang.
Hello, my name is Andrew Relang, and I'll be speaking for the zoning changes. I'm a representative with Black Diamond Biotech, and I just wanted to say a few things about how we would operate things. The number one issue seems to be smell. We operate with a state-of-the-art pharmaceutical-grade filtration system that you would most likely see at Pfizer or any other pharmaceutical company. We have a 3-phase filtration system. First, it starts in a negative pressure, meaning the building is pressurized below the atmosphere, drawing all smells into it. It is then pushed through an activated charcoal filter that attaches to any carbon-based smell, and then goes through an ozone filter that further reduces odor. This system makes it so there is virtually zero odor escaping the building. And I say virtually by 99.9%. Now, I've also heard concerns as to who will work here, and I'm very proud to say very nice people will work here. I went to the University of Iowa for neurobiology, genetics, and bioengineering. My colleagues have PhDs or bachelor's degrees in biology, horticulture, agronomy, and chemistry. So we are a very qualified group. The next thing that we'll do is there are going to be a lot of economic benefits to this. We're going to put at least $4.8 million into this facility. These facilities, with this large of capital, are not poorly run. They are very high-end professional businesses. We are not garage growers. The other thing that we're going to see is we're going to employ directly 30 jobs with our first phase expansion. That's a large impact for this city. On top of that, with this $4.8 million build-out, we also have to hit with lots of local contractors. We need people to actually do the work for us. And this is going to help out everyone in the area as well. On top of all this, the smell and odor is regulated by the state agencies, ORCA. So we have our own penalties that we are subjugated to on a state level, and then as with all the rules that you guys are also proposing. I would not risk $4.8 million on a facility that I did not know would comply with all state and local regulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Renfro?
Hi, my question is regarding the components. The odor may be controlled, but is the components to the marijuana that affects people's minds and neurology, nerves and their brain and development? On the Discovery Channel a couple years ago, before they made this legal, they said they were doing research for people who wanted to stop using it, and they discovered that people were leaving the facility because they were having adverse reactions to not using it, which is an addiction, which is a side effect, which is sort of like SIDS, sensitivity intense deficit syndrome, which it's like taking antibiotics and your body doesn't know how to regulate itself anymore, because then it becomes overly sensitive. You get paranoia and all the other things that they're researching, with the FHA to make it a Schedule II drug. So I think that if they cannot guarantee the components other than just the odor, how will that filtrate out into the atmosphere? And we're talking about symbolically also in comparison to cotton. Cotton was grown all over the place. It became so popular and made money and everyone was doing it. It ended up depleting all the soil so that you couldn't grow it or nothing else. So what are we doing to deplete our children's minds and development and our future other than a temporary fix?
Thank you.
Gail Ashby. Okay. Dennis Duggan. Okay.
I'm Kathy Duggan, and from Tacoma, Washington. And my husband and myself are purchasing a building, one of your very old buildings from the Rainier complex, and leasing it to our sons. Both of our sons are graduates at the University of Washington in biology, and plan to start a marijuana grow business. I understand and respect the concerns of the people and the citizens of Shelton regarding odor, regarding security, and regarding the widespread use of marijuana. Marijuana is already in Shelton. I think all of us know that. It's all through the state. This would allow us to regulate marijuana so that we can judge how it's being grown, we can judge what's actually in it, what's being used, the nutrients, the chemicals. This allows us to look at the security of it. The security is intense that the state has come up with. They have locks on all the doors and windows. They have cameras at every angle, looking at every part of the operation. We will be very non-intrusive to the citizens because there's no coming and going of citizens of Shelton. The operation basically, once there's a sale made, it'll be only to retail stores throughout the state that are licensed for I-502. And other than our own vehicle, truck, or there's going to be allowed a Brinks type of a service to take this marijuana back and forth. It goes out under high security. It's quarantined until it leaves. It goes nowhere. There's no one that can walk up and visit. Our staff will have to be age 21 and no felonies. They go through massive security checks. And as far as the odor, which is a very I value the opinion of the people. I would not want to have marijuana smell going on 24/7 around me either. And the closed loop system allows the smell to be contained within the premises, within the building. And it is not being set out on the air for it to be picked up. It goes through a system which, in my novice, an engineer could tell you a lot better, but it goes through a system which keeps the air within the unit. You use CO2 or ozones to break down to replenish, actually, the oxygen, and for the plants, and the plants are making a lot of extra oxygen, so you actually have to counterbalance that. But it's all done with engineering and in the security of the building. And then if there's anything extra, there's carbon filters that go through and pick up. You can also use UV lights to kill off the odor molecules, or ozone to kill off the
Time is up.
molecules. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Kelly Burdett. I'm a resident of Shelton. I have a teenager in the Shelton School District. I have been working in outreach and advocacy in Mason County for a number of years. I am very passionate on a lot of issues that are in Mason County right now, as far as homelessness, drug treatment, mental health, and teen outreach and things like that. I am for the pot industry, and the reasons why I feel that it would be good for Shelton is because it would generate a lot of money for the issues that I've just addressed, the issues that are present that we need to work on. I've looked into what works for other states and how this is working. What I say is, if it works somewhere else, why not follow in that example? I think that it's a positive thing. I think when I've looked into the statistics of marijuana, it's prescription drugs are going down, alcohol use is going down, crime and violence is going down. Those are the things that we need to be looking at. I do value and respect the residents of Shelton, as others said, and their feelings, and I want to hear that, but I really think we need to look outside the box and what is going to be beneficial for this county and the city. And thank you. Okay.
Hello, I'm Dylan Duggan. We're looking to buy the 318 Mill Street property. We're looking to bring 50 jobs by the time we're completed. We're going to bring a lot of jobs for contractors. We're going to have a lot of opportunity for work in Shelton. Currently, 318 sits basically dilapidating. It's falling apart. We're going to stop that, and we're going to help make jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Mitchell on North Lake Drive in Shelton. The thought crossed my mind that many times I've come to this building and seen all the street people out front. And you know that they're dealing, and you know that it's all illegal. And I believe that this is going to put a stop to it. They will no longer have a way to panhandle, to make their money, to hang out, to sell it out of their pocket. I think control is a darn good thing. So I'm going to say that I'm for it.
Thank you. That it? If anybody else wants to speak to this issue, you have to come up fairly quickly now and sign in. And if you would like to speak to it, we can extend this a little bit longer. Well, just people that haven't already spoken.
Well, I just want to add one comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just one question, I guess. If this is the only way you can raise money, then you have no imagination.
Thank you.
Dennis Duggan would like to take his turn now.
Sure.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak here tonight. My name is Dennis Duggan, and the first time I ever came to the town of Shelton was in the summer of 1979. And at that time, I was an engineer working in design development of electronic control systems for plywood and wood lumber industry. In fact, I've probably been to every mill in the United States and Canada and overseas. In any case, it was a vibrant place, and I remember it as that. I have a 45-year engineering career behind me in oil, big pharma, wood, and the last 30 years in aerospace. And I want people to realize that what we plan to do here is going to be to try to bring the prosperity and the jobs to Shelton. That will come regardless, because we're coming out of what would be considered a prohibition era when MDs wrote prescriptions for whiskey for their patients. Whether or not any of us agree or disagree with the concept of involvement with any medications is a different issue, but all I can speak to is the engineering aspect. And I can assure you that as far as odor is concerned, in fact, the four of us, my wife, myself, and two sons, were at a major conference in Las Vegas about 2 months ago, if I remember properly. There were 5,000 people at that conference, and 100 or more companies. So many I couldn't even remember. It was from all over the nation, and they were from overseas as well. And the technology of odor control and the capability to be able to enforce very good standards kind of takes you from, it would be like if I took you to Appalachia, to a guy with a pot still and a tar barrel and a fire and and then I took you to a Johnny Walker distillery or whatever. You'd see huge stainless steel vats, you'd see sensors, you'd see control loops, you'd see all the engineering that's required to control these things. In fact, I've lived in Tacoma since 1978. And when I first came there, the aroma of Tacoma was evident to everybody. Well, actually, I haven't had that aroma for years, because now they've got scrubbers and they've got all kinds of capabilities to be able to essentially grab those large molecules that make the odor and contain them, capture them, and then reduce them down to where they're not available to the public.
Thank you.
So that's about what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that completes our comments. Okay, thank you very much for everybody on this public testimony. Now, yes. Have you signed in? Okay, you got to come very quickly, and you got to sign in, and because we said in the beginning we kind of want to not do this, so we will allow one grace for you. Nobody else. This is it. Here's your moment.
I'm J.F. Foster. I am the CEO of Black Diamond Biotech. I traveled in here last night to sit with Andrew and Rick. All I can tell you guys is we are more based towards the Merck and the Pfizer. We're interested in the CBD development of this. We work with doctors in Spain. We go with cancer. We go with Alzheimer's. We go with post-traumatic stress, epilepsy. I was just like a lot of you guys. I've never touched this stuff. I'm as dull as they come. But there you go. And it worked out okay. Look, yeah, exactly. This is a very open state. I can respect that. If my name, which is on Black Diamond Biotech, goes on any property, which we carry about 12,000 properties in the United States, goes on this, it will be a state-of-the-art, just as Andrew speaks of. It will be no infliction on anybody's rights or the smell. We want to be economic development for everybody. We want jobs, and like I said, I'm not a good speaker, guys, but we have spent countless hours in Colorado, in Washington, just looking at all the different operations and grow operations, and there's probably maybe a handful that I would put my name on in the U.S. It's going in 28 other states. We're hooked up with those states as well because we want to develop and move in a growing economic, organic system that we do like with all of our other companies. I'm open to anybody's questions. I can take criticism with my name on it, like I said before. This is a good, quiet town. We like that. We want to accentuate that, and we want to do as much as we can with any of the community development, be it homeless, be it cancer, be it whatever it is. Our target market is not the guy that's going to go buy a bag of weed and go back behind the building and smoke it and abuse it. That is not who we're after. That's not who I'm about. That's not what my partners are about. So I appreciate your time. If there's any questions, my door is always open, and I'll answer any question that anybody has at any time.
All right, thank you very much. That closes our public testimony comment period. And now, just for clarification, Steve, I just wanted to ask you, because I read under staff recommendations, and so the way it's written here is a little confusing to me. Exactly what would you like, or what are you asking for us tonight?
If you want to make changes to the ordinance, my recommendation would be to allow us to have a chance to modify that and bring it back to you to see if you're comfortable with the language. If you're comfortable with the ordinance as it's drafted, you could entertain a first reading. Part of what I was saying at the end of my comments was I cannot at this time determine if the state is going to expedite their review of our draft ordinance. If they choose not to, there's not going to be a reason to bring this back for a second reading for some time because we are obligated to honor that 60-day review the state requires. However, if the state is willing to expedite the review, we could bring this back for a second reading as early as February 1st. I don't know at this time which one to recommend, but if you're inclined to have a first reading, that would be fine.
Well, I think at this time, we need to probably talk about this subject, and so I guess if Commissioner Moore or Commissioner McDowell has something they want to say, I can speak to the subject, and I do not feel comfortable tonight, myself, on doing a first reading tonight. I've had this in my packet, and I read through it, and I think I need 1 week to continue to have a conversation with you, a little bit one-on-one, and to exactly know what I'm going to be having a first reading on. I haven't quite had sufficient time, and I want to go through this with you a little bit. Okay, that's where I am. But I'm only one. We have great public comment on both sides. I wrote it all down here, and so I would probably myself like to push the first reading of this ordinance off the way. But I have my fellow commissioners here, and they can speak what they would like or not like, and we do things. Lots of times I'm a lonely holdout, so.
I would feel more comfortable if I could sit down with you, Steve, and talk a little bit more about this. I have some concerns that have come up from some individuals that aren't here tonight, and I would like to, so I would rather wait on that and be able to get together with you.
Okay, and I have actually been studying this, knowing that it was coming up, and so I feel perfectly comfortable having the first reading tonight, but I am outvoted tonight. I have a few comments that relate to the issue, though, and some in response to some of the comments of our public hearing. And I would just like to echo that this is legal, and it is a change. It's always scary to change. I have studied the days of Prohibition and the fears of what would happen when Prohibition was lifted. And I know that that was a very tumultuous time in our history, but we made it through. Our police department, our fire department have had an opportunity to comment on this, and they're both really comfortable with the state regulations that we have to impose. They are fine with it. As a matter of fact, they're actually in favor, as as am I, of those buildings being reused, because as it stands now, speaking of the condition that they're in, they are more liabilities to the city than they are assets. And by turning them into a community economic development, it's huge. It's huge. And I am fully confident that that would be a great deal of money brought into the city just for the renovation of those buildings. Another issue that I'm not sure that people really understand is that the marijuana is so highly regulated. We are not going to see it on the streets of Shelton. It's none of it's going to disappear. It's regulated, it's weighed, it's measured, it's tracked, and so it's not a sloppy process whatsoever. It has to be by law extremely, extremely regulated. And so I don't feel like it's going to have a negative influence on our kids other than possibly as they get old enough and they have to be 21 to work there, give them a new occupation and a new interest. We're hearing that the people who are running and promoting the grow operations are highly educated, highly skilled, and I really believe that it will up the ante for our kids to give them maybe higher goals as far as what they can be when they grow up. We know that generations of our students have stopped going to school and gone into the mills, gone into the woods, and hopefully this can change it. And this is a green industry, and it's a wave of the future, and I'm comfortable with the ordinance as written.
That was very good, Tracy, and I appreciate your comments. One thing is that both of these, I've talked to the people that are interested in doing these, and that the
Odor will be eliminated.
I mean, it'll be very, very minute or gone if we choose to go there. So that is not a big question. And I do want to let everyone know that this is a very, very sensitive subject. And that's why when I make my decisions, I got to know, because I know that once I make this decision, I'm setting a course for this situation for a long, long time, and I want to think about it. I don't like to have anybody try to bully me or push me into making a decision. And sometimes things kind of get like that. So I want my time, and I think that 1 week will not do anything to anybody. And again, you said, hopefully the state will give us, if we choose to go this way, that the quick speed track thing. But when I make this decision, I want to make sure that I'm satisfied with it for the long run. Okay? And I have many friends on both sides of the aisle. Many friends on both sides of the aisle. It's a sensitive issue, and I don't want to rush. That's basically the way it is. And I want to make this, I want to talk to you a little bit about the collective gardening thing a little bit. There seems to be two kind of separate issues in this, the way it's written here, and so I don't want to take the time tonight, but that would be something in about the people growing it in, if what we're doing has anything to do with, outside of these two projects, rental units, and what response does the landlord have over a renter that grows the 30 plants or whatever that they grow in that rental unit. Because there is no control on the odor if you're next to a rental unit and it doesn't have a closed loop, whatever. And 30 plants can smell, So I just want to ask those questions about what we're actually signing on. And so I think taking an extra week will not kill anybody. So that's my statement on it. And did you have any more to add?
No, I just want some little bit of time to get a few more questions answered.
Very good. Thank you all for participating. So that's our conversation. And so at this point, we're closing this public hearing. Okay? And what we're going to do at this point is bring this back at our next meeting. And there, at that point, we will visit the idea of having a first reading. Okay? Thank you very much for everyone that turned out, and I wish you would all come out to our meetings every single week. It's always good to see you. All right, are we ready for reading the consent agenda?
Yes.
If we are, could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Number 1, vouchers numbered 10783 through 10839 in the amount of $363,888.68. Number 2, vouchers numbered 10597 through 10684 in the amount of $252,509.14. Number 3, commission minutes from business meeting of December 7th, 2015, study session of December 14th, 2015. Number 4, Department of Commerce interagency agreement accepting grant funding for growth management services for the 2016 Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulations Update, authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement and the city administrator to make the necessary budget modifications. Number 5, agreement between the city and CGI Communications Incorporated for the creation of promotional videos showcasing the city, authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement and accompanying letter of introduction.
Very good. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda passes. There's no old business at this time, but we have one item under new business, and that's going to be presented to us by our staff member there, Mr. Mike Michael.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This has actually been kind of on the back burner simmering for some time. Early last year, city, working with Mason County Conservation District and MTA, sponsored a grant through DOE for development of a parking lot using newer LID technologies as a demonstration project. This parking lot would be behind the current community transit center and the old Radich facilities over there. We were successful actually in getting that grant, and back early in December, DOE finally got to us with the draft agreement and said, oh, by the way, we'd like that signed by the end of January. So, been working on the agreement with DOE as well as the interlocal agreements with the two other entities, which you have in front of you this evening, bringing those forward. The interlocal agreements are currently being reviewed by legal staff. That's why you'll see in our recommendations we're asking this to actually come back on old business, because I did not get comments yet today. Expect those in the next day or two, though. So again, this grant is for this parking lot development. The total grant amount is for $257,125. MTA will be responsible through the ILA for covering all the additional costs, including the 15% match that's on this. The little bit of staff time, particularly myself, managing the grant through DOE is an eligible cost that will be paid either through the grant itself or by MTA covering the 15% match.
I like grants.
Grants are good.
So any questions or comments from Mike?
I've had quite a conversation with John Bolander about this, and I'm very excited to see the low-impact development stormwater techniques, and I hope it can become a model for all the projects that we have in town.
And just a side note, the ILA that we're presenting here actually is a broader scope ILA. We have in the past had a couple agreements with Mason Conservation District for them to help us on particularly stormwater stuff. And so again, we're looking at doing a broad ILA there, which will have a secondary scoping memo that'll be attached to it for this specific project. But as Commissioner Moore mentioned, she's been talking with John about tree stuff, this would be a mechanism to help with that in the future as well.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. I believe that we can encourage to move this item ahead.
Yes.
The draft staff's request is to place the agenda under old business on January 25th, 2016 agenda, and so please, we can do that. Next is administration reports. We have something, was coming from Mark Ziegler, but he has put in a friend of his, and so we're going to have a report by Mr. Clark. Well, he wanted to do something, he wanted to take the night off and do something else, and so you got to sit in for him? You're a friend, you are.
Mayor, Commissioners, yes, I may not look like Mark Ziegler, but I'm going to relay the same basic information here. We are very excited to be bringing forward these community reader boards that are going to replace the banners that have been put up for years in our town. And I've passed out to the commissioners some copies, and I've got a couple more left here. Anybody wants them, raise your hand. Jordan down there.
Okay.
Sure. There's two locations that these reader boards are going to go up at. This is kind of a little bit of old business because we've talked about this before, but one of the locations specifically, as you can see on the first picture here are the two reader boards. They're ready to be installed. They're going to be installed by Public Works crew. They're extending power, and PUD will be hooking that up, and we're bringing water in, so if there's a desire, we can put some annuals maybe in front of these, a little bit of color. I think there's a vision that some of the service clubs in town may want to put their logos near these. I don't think they'll actually be on these structures, but maybe we'll put some poles in next to it to facilitate that. Mark and I were talking about, there's specifically at the location that I'm going to talk about in a minute, up by the entry on the south end of town, by the wagon, the wheel, and the large log, and the pull-out there. Those service signs are pretty tired, and they also have a lot of information about the meeting times and the locations and that, which I'm not too sure they're up to date. The vision here would be that maybe on this reader board, which will be a series of information that will scroll through and will be changed from time to time. Current with the events coming into town, but the idea on the service clubs, that the service clubs would probably have some interval in that scrolling of information that they could put the time and meeting place of the Kiwanis or the Lions clubs and that kind of thing. So they wouldn't have to be on the poles. We could just have the logos of those types of service clubs that we do have in town. So that's the vision on that. Let's go to the second page, and here is on the south location. The north location is already locked in. It's going to be up by the Teriyaki, right there by Wallace Nealon, by the storm drainage pond that the DOT has there. So when you at that signal, when you go southbound on Olympic Highway North, it'll be right on your right-hand side, probably within about 300 feet of that intersection on the right-hand side, and all of the locations are being done for utilities and everything up there, and those are ready to be installed and will be shortly. At this particular location, we wanted to bring this back to the commission because there's 3 locations up there that we talked about in the field when we went out and looked at this. And from this map here that has the ABC on it as far as locations go, right now, B was selected early on as the location, and it's right before the pullout. But as we looked at the sign in the field, we realized pretty quickly that it may cover up the wheel from a visibility standpoint, and I'm not too sure we want to do that. It also is going to hinder this road and access to some of the park property immediately to just the uphill side there. And I'm not too sure we want to do that either. So as we looked at it and talked it over with the PUD and that, there was another location further to the south a little bit, and you can see that's that upper location A, that would serve fine as well, would not hinder the road and access there, but it was thought to be a location that would work probably better than the B middle location. The actually preferred location for all the people that we met in the field with is this service sign location. And if you go to the very back, very last page, and actually the pages in between show kind of where that sign would be, but if you go to this very last page, this is a picture of the service sign, as you can see here, and that is the location we thought actually was the best for the sign's location. It does a couple things. If we put it at a different location, now you have that, you have the wheel, you have the service signs, and then you have the log. And so there's all these different things going on. This would replace the service sign location. Like I say, I think the vision is to use some adjacent posts to house the service sign emblems and that. But it's I think in the best visible location for that. And so we thought the commissioners could look at this. I don't know if you're familiar enough, you want to do something tonight, but at least maybe by next week we could make a decision. And this appeared to, like I say, we can get power here. We're all good. So think about it. Like I say, we're excited to get these up. They're ready to go. So it's just a matter if we want to change that location, please consider it. Thank you.
What I was thinking before you said that was a good location is that I was looking at the three, and I understand why all the other three were presented, and we've been talking about this for about a year or 6 months or so, and I really believe the C location. And this is the reason why, is that's going to a degree can hinder some traffic. That Fairmont Street, that's a big traffic, a hard intersection to begin with. So the A position, I didn't like that. I think we talked about the B, but to a degree, people that come into Shelton, the reason there's that pavement there for people to kind of pull over, take a look at the view, look at the wheel, maybe look at those signs, and be out of traffic. And some people that are a little older, like myself, might like to pull over there to a new city, and I can sit there in my car, I can read what's on your sign. So just looking at the way you presented it, now, I'm only one vote on this one, so, but I would like to I would like to get moving with it, the signs are ready to go, so I'm kind of for C, but we had talked about, so I don't know.
That was my favorite location all along. So what I'm wondering about, though, is what do we have to do to make it right with the service clubs? I mean, do we replace their signs, or do they agree to replace their signs?
I don't believe Mark has looked into that.
I was there.
I'm speculating, but I think the service clubs would probably be able to provide their own signs through their organizations. We certainly could provide the standards for which those could be adhered, and I'm thinking of the entrance on Railroad as you come from west to east into town. The new locomotive, we put some new logos there on that particular entry sign, and I'm guessing the same type of thing would go here.
This is about 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, the home builders put that thing together. And all of the clubs gave the signs, and we replaced another one that was falling apart or so. So I guess, that it could be changed or whatever. The home builders put that in, I was part of that little, I remember screwing the little signs on there and doing all that. So any problems, that was me. But, so I think what you're looking to do is probably get the information on all the signs, see what's relevant, make maybe a new kind of a deal in conjunction with the sign, or actually move those signs to another location.
Those signs are really tired.
Yeah, they're tired.
They're delaminating, they're faded. I think all the clubs would probably support getting something, vibrant and new out there. We'll work with the clubs to make that happen. And so.
The design is gorgeous.
It is.
I love
it. It fits right. It's modern, but it fits right in with our logging theme of our town, which we're still not willing to give up yet. Not quite. Never.
Just so you look at this picture too, the spacing between these two log standards is about 9 feet, center line to center line, and the width of the entire structure is about 13 and a half feet. So it gives you an idea on scale there.
Okay, so A is the upper one, and you think that one would work better versus the C?
C is the preferred location by
Okay.
pretty much everybody, but
Okay.
A is another alternate that would work better than B because B kind of covers up the wheel.
Right. I'm for whatever. Whatever looks
Okay.
great.
No, I agree with Gary. I think people will want to pull over and sit there and read the sign.
I agree, Gary. I think that's a really good, because otherwise, if you put it at the B location, the sign would be facing up the road, and you'd have to get out of your car to see it. And it does rain around here every once in a while. It'd be nice to see.
I think we concur.
Yeah.
We concur that C is okay, and also that we want to go ahead and put this under old business for the January 25th, 2016 meeting. And I think we're all okay on C, and so whatever we need to do, you've got the marching orders to do that.
Perfect.
Greg, can you, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, absolutely.
Can you explain what is going to be on these signs to our citizens out there? What will be on these signs?
It's similar to like Forest Festival and other types of notifications. The banners have been used for years to relay upcoming events in town. And so the idea here is on this variable reader board, we can program in with lights that type of information. We've all seen these types of scrolling billboards and that's what this is, would be some kind of a scrolling information. And we can put as many or as few. It's all electronic. It's, I think, updated on a web page, transmitted here wirelessly. And so, and I'm not too sure if the chamber is going to be involved with some of this. I'm not exactly sure who will program this thing. Maybe Mark does, but we can relay that next week. But it's an updatable sign at some interval. It would be updated probably monthly, if not sooner, and try and relay upcoming events in town, school district closures, road closures. I mean, we could use it for anything that the community desires to get the word out on different things. But in this particular case, we only have 2 of them at this point, but I think there's a vision maybe to add some more at some of our entry points.
Well, whoever built those did a beautiful job.
He did. And I should know the gentleman's name, but I don't.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
He works for the PUD, but I know that.
Oh, is that Randy Howard?
I think it is Randy.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Vicki Look. That's what my notes say, and I don't know what she's going to tell us.
Well, I think at this point we had added to the agenda, and Commissioner McDowell would like to make her presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I want to share my thoughts with my fellow commissioners and the public on the process I believe we should use for hiring a new city administrator. Number 1, the commission needs to start the recruitment process as soon as possible. 2, it has to be a deliberate process, and what I mean by that is it's imperative that the commission gets this right. Number 3, the commission needs to look for a professional recruiter. I know this will take some time, so I believe it's likely we will have to appoint a qualified interim administrator. When considering a permanent administrator, it's crucial that the commission choose the most qualified candidate. The commission will consider local candidates, but I want to strongly stress the candidates must be qualified. The process must be open and very transparent. The commission will depend on citizen input. Our citizens will help us with a final evaluation of the candidates. Most important, we commissioners must make the final decisions regarding both permanent and interim administrators. I propose that the commission direct staff to develop a recruitment plan, including a timeline that will keep us focused and on task for the city administrator recruitment process. I would like to see the plan presented at the meeting of January 25th. And I want to know if my fellow commissioners agree with these.
Sounds good to me.
Yes. Okay.
All right, moving forward. Okay, at this point, anybody that has already signed in for public comment, please, let's have them come forward if there's anybody out there, and then we will be moving out of the meeting. So,
Toby Kevin.
Toby Kevin.
Toby Kevin, 709 Terrace View Drive, Shelton. Thank you, Commissioner McDowell, for a rather in-depth report. And I'm sure the commissioner remembers that I was one who proposed this approach going back now, I think, 6 weeks. I applaud what's been done. I had something else I wanted to say, but this old brain lost it.
Well, you got a full 3 minutes, so you should take all the time you want.
Yeah. I think there's a paradox here. There's a tendency to make sure we do everything deliberately and do it right, but I think at the last meeting, I forget now who it was that spoke, made a very telling point that it would be a grave mistake if we not avail ourselves of the experience that Dave O'Leary has, and probably the best way to leverage that experience, whether it's an interim or a full-time person, is overlap. One of the things that you might think about rolling into the plan would be to ask Dave if, assuming we run out of time, which is a possibility at this point, if he might be willing to serve in some fashion as a consultant once a selection is made.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Tom Davis.
Tom Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Tom Davis again. I concur with Commissioner McDowell on this. I do have one area of concern, and that is that this is just not window dressing in terms of having an interim placement and then going with that placement. I would be probably comfortable with someone who stepped in temporarily who was not a candidate. Simply because I think for sure that we need to take a look outside. We need to take a look inside too for a qualified candidate, but I don't want to see someone come in and then the transition from the interim to the permanent is just an easier thing to do. So there's a distinct advantage. For instance, you develop relationships, you get familiar with the process and procedures of the city. You have a distinct advantage over your competitors for that position, and I wouldn't want to see this to be a backdoor approach into handpicking someone to this most vital position in the city as far as I'm concerned. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned just a little while ago that you basically are shouldered with the responsibility of aiming this city in a positive direction. And your decisions and the decisions of this commission will affect the city for decades. And so I do appreciate the weight that you carry. This would be one of those moments that we all need to kind of step back and take a look at this situation objectively and see that we make sure that we get the best qualified people. Dr. Apostle and Chief Booty were excellent choices. And as a result of those choices, look what's happened. Two individuals bringing in some new inspiration and new blood, and the ability to mix it up a little bit. And that's what we need. It's uncomfortable, but we need to be mixed up once in a while to stir the pot and allow these new, fresh ideas and lives to come in and influence the direction of this city. That was so terribly successful. I couldn't even imagine why anyone would consider going in another direction from something that already has proven success. So I encourage you to follow exactly what Commissioner McDowell had suggested, but maybe look at the possibility of not making the interim position a permanent position for that particular candidate. It would lend a great deal more credibility and transparency to the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mike Olson.
Mike Olson.
Mike Olson, in my past life, I believe 2 months ago, I think I practically made that same motion that Kathy has now wisdomly done. So I hope that 2 more months doesn't go by. You know, it's ridiculous that you've waited 2 months to get to this point when you had Dave O'Leary sitting there to guide you along this path. My suggestion was, as Kathy's mentioned, get a job description done. Hasn't been done. I also suggested contact professional agencies. Still hasn't been done. So now that you've all agreed on this, I hope it happens very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, the administration final touches.
Touches? Steve?
We have a item that we want to bring forward next week. It's a recommendation for a new person, a new board member for the Historic Preservation Board.
Okay, any other final touches? Hearing none, this meeting, our next meeting will be Monday, January 25th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.
Alrighty then. I have to